This is what you might call down and dirty science.
I love being dirty. I might get in trouble when I head home, but I love being down in the dirt.
Eric von Wettberg studies plant genetics in the Plant and Soil Science Department at the University of Vermont.
Being here at UVM is honestly my dream job. Since I first visited Vermont, I've wanted to work here. I get to do all sorts of different things. I get to do everything from plant my own peas to think about the origin of farming and civilization, from down in the dirt to pie in the sky.
The experiment that has von Wettberg digging in the dirt deals with diversity, one pea at a time.
Diversity is a hedge against bad things happening. A farmer's productivity rests on their soil. The best way to protect the soil is to keep things growing on it. Here in Vermont, we can do that in the summer fairly easily, but in the winter, if we have growing vegetation, a cover crop over the winter, we can protect the soil through the winter.
Planting cover crops like wheat and rye in the fall prevents soil erosion and nutrient runoff. Adding peas to the crop mix provides a nitrogen source, which cuts down on fertilizer costs come spring. There's only one problem. Most pea varieties can't tolerate a Vermont winter. Notice I said most.
Our aim in this experiment is to help develop winter-tolerant pea varieties. In this trial, we are using a number of varieties that have been saved by farmers in the Dakotas, Montana, Washington State, as well as by my own students here, and we're seeing which of them do best.
This experiment goes beyond picking the perfect pea. Von Wettberg also wants to know which variety packs the biggest nutrient punch, what he calls the mechanism.
That's right.
One of the things that I'm most interested in is how the climate and the agricultural system where varieties came from impacts the genetic diversity we see. In addition, as a researcher, part of what I think about is mechanism. Understanding the mechanism by which they give back to the soil. Keeping the soil covered is part of that. In modern breeding, because we're so focused on yield, we've overlooked what the crop is putting back into the soil. So by working with seed savers, we can assemble that diversity and look to see how it in turn impacts the soil and the subsequent crop. This one rolls off the tongue, PS113024W.
The peas in this experiment aren't any off-the-shelf garden variety. They've been selected, bred, and saved over generations by researchers like von Wettberg and by people like Sylvia Davatz.
Pineapple fog. It's my new favorite this year.
A lifelong gardener, Davatz began saving seeds out of necessity.
I had a backyard where I grew tomatoes, and I had an asparagus patch and raspberries and all sorts of things. But I began to notice that some of my favorite varieties were disappearing from the seed catalogs, and I found this really alarming. And so that was one thing that sparked my interest in getting started.
Seed saving dates back to the dawn of human civilization. It's only within the last 100 years that this practice began to go out of style as agriculture became more commercialized and corporatized. For Davatz, seed saving is a bridge between agriculture's past and its future.
All of those generations of farmers who came before us, for whom seed saving was a natural part of the growing cycle. Nobody didn't save seed. If you farmed, you saved seed. You needed it for yourself. You needed it to share with others in your community. And so I don't consider myself anything more than an agent or a steward. These seeds came to me from generations of people who saved them and preserved them and developed them. It's my job to keep them alive so that they are available for future generations. As you can see, the little capsules are opening up here.
Davatz began saving seeds for von Wettberg in order to preserve crops considered too niche for commercial seed suppliers. Crops like the Vermont Hubbard squash. Preserving these unique varieties of vegetables plants a seed, so to speak, for future generations.
Some of us who are seed savers who've been doing this for decades are getting older, And we need to find a way, first of all, to pass our knowledge on to others, to pass our collections on to others, and to make sure that all of this work and everything that we have worked so hard to preserve and keep alive and maintain, that it doesn't end with our generation.
At his lab, von Wettberg is surrounded by seeds. There are seeds drying on the windowsill, and seeds sealed in plastic packets and paper envelopes, and still more seeds frozen for safekeeping.
Freezing seeds is not ideal. Ultimately, a seed is a living artifact, and when we put them in a freezer, we're perhaps moving away from the culture that went with the seeds. Part of what we do as researchers is provide a stopgap. As a teacher, a large part of what I try to do in my crop breeding course is teach applied seed saving so that there's a generation to follow Sylvia and other seed savers here in the Northeast.
Each seed that's being preserved here represents a legacy, gifts that will continue to give and grow for generations to come.
It is amazing to work with seed savers because the insights they have, the diversity that they've preserved are stunning. It's a pleasure to be a part of the farming community in Vermont. We have such a unique landscape and agricultural heritage. You know, it's fun to understand it, or try to understand it.
In the lab or out in the field, seeds are an investment in the future, and that's something worth saving. In Burlington, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.